Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Joe Patrick on Football, joined by my friend Mark Zinno,
Mm.
who I was on the phone with after the season finale. Kind of, we were dishing out our thoughts to each other.
Yeah.
Mark had me convinced of some things, one of which was that Raheem could stay, and it may have been the best decision for the franchise at the time. But
Yep.
Mark, what were your thoughts? Like, considering we had just had that conversation, probably an hour before the news came down. What were you thinking? What was going through your head when you saw those tweets come through saying with the news that Raheem and Terry had been fired?
Surprise the old man had enough gumption to do it. I'm surprised because the people he listened to last time clearly were not the same people he listened to this time.
Mm.
What I mean by that is, again, the same people who staged a mini coup against him. If he was to hire Belichick, it's not the same crew of people that told him to fire. That's my guess. It was a different voice in his ear this time. Look, here's what I said, and I just want to back this up. Look, I understand why everybody wanted Raheem fired. I'm not telling you not to have those feelings. What I'm saying here is that you are now in your fifth coach in the last dozen years. You're essentially the New York Giants and the Cleveland Browns. That's what you've become.
Maybe worse. That might be flattering the Falcons a little bit, honestly.
You don't have to like it, but that's how often those teams change coaches. So, in order to grow the franchise in the long term, there's an argument that keeping Raheem was better. Like, again, all these teams, Joe, that are searching for coaches right now, with the exception like the Giants and maybe even the Titans to a certain extent, you have to have the quarterback. Like, that's the other component of this that we're not factoring into firing the coach. We don't know who the quarterback is next year. Penix only an 6-8 month injury. Okay. And you have what certainty that Penix is, quote, the guy?
Yeah.
I don't know that. Nobody knows that. And so you're taking a quarterback now who has been in the same system for 2 years, which was ineffective. Now you're going to take him and put him in a new system, which, oh, by the way, may include him, depending on who they hire, being under center a lot more, something he doesn't typically do and hasn't had to do. And now you're asking him to start all over again. Like, year one does not set up well for winning at all. There's so many questions to be answered. As we sit here on January 6th, there's so many questions to be answered. Now, some of these things can become available. But to me, it made a lot more sense to keep Raheem for one more year, get through this bridge quarterback season, right? Hope that maybe, whatever it is, you can make the playoffs. And if you did that, great. If you didn't, then guess what? Firing him was more justified after 3 seasons anyway. And then you're starting fresh all over. And you keep Ulbrich in the fold, right? You keep your defense growing. You're going to bring a new OC in here anyway. But, like, there's an argument that you could make some tweaks and get better results than what you had, because clearly there was enough. Like, I keep going back to the people, Joe, who are screaming about an 8-9 team winning the division, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I would argue that's the dumbest argument ever. Like, they shouldn't get a home playoff game. Yes, they should. Because in reality, if one field goal had gone their way throughout the year, guess what? They're 9-8, and we're not having this conversation because they're 9-8. But we're gonna. It's the same thing for the Falcons. Like, the margin for error, and you and I went through this, Joe. Some of those games they lost were not on the coach. They weren't on coaching.
Mm-hmm.
Missed extra point against the Patriots. Stupid freaking field goal against the Jets.
All the kicking.
Colts, all the kicking stuff. Like,
there was also missed tag. I mean, there was some sloppy pass rush against the Colts that could have won that game in regulation.
The point is that they were close enough to sit there objectively, and no fan is going to hear this. No fan wants to hear this, and they're going to comment down below and tell you I'm an idiot. Fine, I've heard worse, and I'll sleep just fine tonight. But the reality is that, to me, the stability and holding on to what you had made more long-term sense than doing what is in right now, because everybody feels good about it because everybody wanted a pound of flesh. But there's a lot of chaos right now, Joe. I don't feel good as other people do, because maybe I just look through things through a different prism, but I don't feel good. I don't know how you feel.
If I can coin a term, I think what we're seeing from a lot of Falcons fans is just like blank slate optimism, where they've been so perturbed by, what has happened here over the last 5+ years, that there's just a genuine, happiness that they're, the slate is wiped clean at this point. And I think that, the Matt Ryan rumors speak to that, where, he is a person that Falcons fans have faith in, trust in, et cetera, and they're very enthused by the idea of him coming in
Are
and
you?
putting his stamp on things, despite the fact that he doesn't
Are
really
you?
have any experience. Am I? I am. We did a podcast on this. Actually, it was right before. It was the podcast I did before I last talked to you on the show, where we talked about Chris Spielman, and I think Matt Ryan has. There's a lot of conversation about the lack of experience that he has in the job, whatever the job
Right.
ultimately is. We don't even know what the job is
Yes, we don't have a
specifically.
title yet. Yeah.
Right. So it's all a little bit, nebulous as to exactly what we're talking about him doing. But I think that he has some of the things that are the hardest to acquire. And if we're going to talk about experience, which is having been not only a NFL player, but a quarterback. I mean, there's something different about being a quarterback. You really are kind of leading that team, and you are touching kind of every part of the roster. And, I think that brings itself a level of experience. And I think that this particular organization needed somebody who has been in this city, has dedicated, much of their life and livelihood to, the people in this city, which Matt Ryan obviously has done. So for me, I know it's not like anything you can really like hang your hat on with certainty as to like he's going to be successful, but I just feel like some of the things and traits and attributes that he brings to the role is something that's been desperately missing for a while. What are your thoughts on all this?
I don't know what to think. I mean, everybody is clapping back at me on Twitter like, worked with John Lynch, worked with John Elway.
Well, you can actually argue how effective John Lynch has been.
Okay. I mean, yes. But my point is, it's like, let me get this straight. Just because everybody else didn't work means it's going to work for you. Like the same in parlance, you would understand. Well, Stephen A. Smith has a politics show on Sirius XM. Well, it'll work for me.
Right.
That's not guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know. I have no idea. I have no idea. I'm not doubting Matt Ryan's acumen. I am not even doubting his leadership abilities. Here's what the bridge that I can't cross that everybody else is crossing. Okay. Because a month ago, before Matt Ryan's name ever came up in any conversation, the general consensus of every fan was Arthur Blank should sell the team. He has no idea what he's doing anymore. He's the guy making decisions. This is all on him and Rich McKay. All on him, and we're going to get to that in a minute. It's all on Arthur Blank and Rich McKay. The other one's making a decision. This is why we're terrible. Okay, there's an argument for that. One would even say I might agree with that he might be the biggest problem. Because he chose Matt Ryan, all of a sudden you think he became the smartest guy in the world? Square that away from each other. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Every other decision he made was bad, but all of a sudden now this one is going to be good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we have such levels of optimism that I can't. My mind doesn't get there. Like,
Mark, he got the consultants in. The consultants are going to change.
Is it the Bob's office space? What would you say you do here?
Right.
No, but like the it's that, and then it's the whole idea that okay. Oh, Rich McKay's out of the way, right? Rich McKay is now just a regular guy, and he's not president of the Falcons. I have been told this lie 3 times since I've been in Atlanta. This is the 3rd time now I've been told this exact same line. Rich McKay doesn't have anything to do with football. Guess what? I was lied to the first 2 times. You guys believe it? Ready? Here's the one question I will ask at the press conference. Arthur, does that mean Rich McKay has stepped down from his role in the competition committee? No, he hasn't. Okay, then he's still involved in football operations because the NFL will not have somebody on a competition committee who is not involved in football. So you can't sit here and lie to me and tell me that he's not involved in football operations, yet he's still on the NFL competition committee. That means he's involved in football. I'm not falling for it. I'm not falling for it. And that's exactly what I will say to Arthur tomorrow. Arthur, you cannot tell me he's not involved in football operations, but he's still in the competition committee. That does not square. It won't square with me, and it doesn't square with anybody else who knows the NFL. Sorry, I got to hit.
Well, no, it's fine, but I guess I would push back on. Well, it's not even pushback, really. I guess, but I said this on the show yesterday. I've talked to a source that has worked in Flowery Branch, at some of the highest levels, and that source told me that, because I asked the source about Rich McKay, because
Mhm.
Rich McKay, gets a lot of guff from Falcons fans, and I've only been covering the team since 2022. I really haven't been around it long enough to understand, and I expected this source to tell me that, yeah, he's a big problem. It's, kind of gets in the way of things, wants to
No,
insert himself, and that's
I've
that's
heard
not
that.
the response I got.
No, I haven't heard that, but he's still got the ear of the owner, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
again, we found this out through the interview that he ended up doing. Am I allowed to say the other station name and I get
Sure,
yelled at?
go for it, go for it.
Anyway, the other station in
The
town
other
is on
station in
99,
Atlanta.
so I don't get yelled at. When he did that interview on there, that he was still in Monday meetings with the coach and the owner.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you're involved, and maybe he's just sitting in listening,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know. Like, I can tell you this much from my military experience, like I only have the other guy. Like, if I'm talking to one of my subordinate commanders and I have my sergeant major in the room, for those who understand, I have another person in the room to listen to the conversation. It's not because I'm not going to have a conversation with them about it afterwards. It's not
Mm-hmm.
just that they're there for no, it's I seek their counsel. I want their opinion. I want their advice on what to do, or I want them to interject some point of view from their experience that I had. Like, so he's in the meeting for a reason. I'm
Yeah.
not saying he's interfering, but that's still involved in football.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is.
So
It
my
is.
question is simply that if he's still on the competition committee, that means he's still involved in football. Like,
And he will likely still be in those Monday meetings, by the way, because the whole point of those Monday meetings, at least as it relates to Rich McKay, is he is the liaison between the Falcons and any issues they have with how a game
officiating,
was officiated, et
all that.
cetera, et cetera.
So, like, stop saying he's out of football and lying to us. He's still part of it. Like, that's what I'm saying about this whole thing. Like, this is why I don't have the optimism everybody else has, because I've been told this story before and I know how it goes. And it would be a far cry for me to think that Arthur Blank stopped. If he had let go of Rich McKay from the organization entirely,
Mm-hmm.
then we have a different conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have a different conversation here. But I find it hard to believe that when big decisions need to be made, that a phone call won't be made to Rich McKay to ask for his opinion, which is totally okay. I'm not saying it's not okay. What I'm saying here is that you don't have to tell me that he's out of football.
Mm-hmm.
You don't. Like, I get it. The guy has been around the league for 40 years, maybe for a good reason, maybe not. He's had some success. Maybe he has, maybe he has. I don't. It's just I don't like, you can't insult my intelligence. Don't piss on my back and tell me it's raining. Like, I mean, I've been here for this story. This is not a third time I've been told Rich McKay has nothing to do with football. Okay, but he does.
Yeah. There's so many things I could talk to you about. I want to reflect a little bit with you on Terry Fontenot's tenure with the Falcons. Obviously, kind of came in post COVID. I'm sure there's tons of different transactions, different moves that were made that we could discuss till the cows come home. But in general, how do you kind of look at what he did and surmise it all in a relatively brief way?
If I put it in this terms, is the franchise more talented now and has a better roster now than before he got here? The answer is yes.
Mm.
Now, did you see what the roster was when he took over with
Right.
Marcus Mariota and everybody else, and a defense that was 30th and 32nd in the league? Like, you only have one place to go, up.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
in that context, in that framework, okay, he went up.
Yeah.
They're better. They're more talented now than they were when he took over.
Yeah.
That said, if I take away the first round, it's been a bad drafter.
Mm-hmm.
Hitting on first rounds is important, but there's an argument to say hitting on the cheaper guys in the late rounds is what makes Super Bowl teams, right?
It's especially the earlier drafts too that would have built the depth that you kind of would have had during these years when you do get the quarterback in place and stuff, that they just weren't there. And I think we saw that with the Falcons, where maybe not any time, but most times there was an injury to a key starter. it would kind of create chaos. There wasn't a lot of options or solid depth behind those players. I'll actually give Jeff Ulbrich a lot of credit for creating some of that on the defensive side of the football, especially like at the nickel spot with what he did with D. Alford and Billy Bowman, kind of working them in. But like at the receiver spot, we saw there was obviously a huge lack of depth there where they had taken shots in the draft on guys like Casey Washington, who was a healthy scratch down the second half of this season. And so I agree with you that was a major kind of.
I would argue that
him.
the two best free agent signings probably are Bates and Diablo.
Yeah.
Right.
Caden Ellis too. Good one.
Caden Ellis is a good one.
You know who got a lot of credit for that actually was Ryan Pace. Ryan Pace came in to be their VP of pro personnel, who basically kind of overlooks pro scouting. So it's even in some of those instances, it's hard to determine kind of who deserves the credit. I mean, obviously, Terry as the GM, he is accountable for both the good and the bad. So we do have to kind of give him his flowers to the extent that they're deserved. But like I know that Ryan Pace and Kyle Smith, very well regarded as two executives that were playing kind of the assistant roles behind Terry Fontenot. It'll be interesting to see what happens to them.
The whole scouting department may be turned over.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Maybe Ryan Pace stays though. He came from Chicago, and if they get Ian Cunningham from Chicago to be the GM, who knows?
I mean,
but you wouldn't think.
I don't know. I would assume Ulbrich gone too as well. I mean, your defense is gonna take a hit, and I didn't think that was a big enough reason to keep Raheem per se, but it's part of it. I mean,
it was definitely
You're not coming in here telling a coach and a GM who their coordinators are going to be.
Yeah. So
I'm talking about that. It's not that it hasn't happened. It's just very, very rare, and there's always usually a connective tissue that keeps him there. Like, i.e., if they hire Robert Saleh, yeah, you can get Jeff Ulbrich back, sure. I mean, that's not happening because they're going to hire an offensive guy. But so, I mean, for Fontenot, I think that it's a mixed bag. I don't think he was great. I don't think he was bad. I think I don't have a problem with the gambles that he took. Right, like I'm all for a GM who pushes chips to the center table more often than not. I had no problem with the trade. I think it worked out well defensively for them.
How about the quarterback gambit?
The cornerback or quarterback?
The quarterback. When with the whole Cousins Penix thing.
We know who pushed that button. That was an edict from on high that they were going to have a backup.
They were going to have a successor.
So
they didn't get left in the Matt Ryan spot.
That was an edict from on high. His hand was forced in that. Now I don't know to the level of extent of it had to be the 8th overall pick, but my thoughts on that whole debacle from day one. It was a bad move the day they did it. It's been a bad move ever since. It blew up in their face. They'll never admit it. The owner will never admit it because I'm going to ask him about that tomorrow. Are you willing to admit that signing Kirk Cousins and drafting Michael Penix was a abject failure? Because it is.
Mm-hmm.
It was the
results show that it is.
The result. It was a bad move when you decided it. You never stuck to at least if you would have stuck to the plan and had a shot to survive, but it never did. Anyway, so I don't blame necessarily Terry for all that.
I want to throw this little wrinkle into the quarterback conversation because I've seen this crop up and I know how you feel about it. But I would also say that I think that if Kirk Cousins is the starter this entire season, I think the Falcons are in the playoffs.
Agree.
Relatively easily.
Agree.
And I think that if they had not drafted Penix, if they had just signed Kirk, I know a lot of people are saying you never should have signed Kirk. You just should have gotten Penix, which it may have been more complicated to get Penix if you didn't sign a quarterback previously and nobody, kind of throwing teams off the scent that you were going to draft a quarterback. But I think if they just, if they just sign Kirk and then let's say you either draft a rookie, backup or you sign a low-cost backup.
Stick in here again.
Then he might be, then I think there was obviously some trust broken, which caused some team dynamic issues that then affected the injury and his unwillingness to talk about it.
If they told him,
of course,
we're drafting a quarterback in round 1, he would have went back to Minnesota. I guarantee it.
Yeah, and
that would have changed the course for them as well. I mean, the reality is that yes, the offense ran a hell of a lot better. The problem was, and I wish I had some clarity on whether the decision came from higher than Raheem Morris or not, but benching Kirk Cousins was the wrong move. His play was bad. I'm not going to sit here and defend it, but guess what? There have been other quarterbacks in this league who have survived bad 5-game stretches. Somebody go look at Peyton Manning's numbers the year he won the Super Bowl. Now, granted, again, it's Peyton Manning, so he's got a little bit more clout. I mean, in Denver, the numbers were god-awful. Like, sometimes you just have to ride things out in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
You have to stop being so emotionally wound up after every win and loss and realize that, things are still in front of it. Look, my guess is if they end up letting Kirk finish the year, they might have made the playoffs last year. I mean, it's just the way it is. Yes,
it's possible. I mean, they beat the Giants, who were terrible that year, and then they lost their other 2 games, and maybe
the Commanders. I mean, but I think about this year, and as you said, if they at least went into camp with a spot for an open competition, maybe it goes differently. But I agree. If Kirk's a starter there in the playoffs,
Mark, it's so interesting because it just feels like in general, like we're a similar age, and we're very familiar with it was one of the things you almost looked forward to as an NFL fan was the quarterback competitions that were happening around the league and who was going to win them. And it feels like it's one of those modern football things where GMs and coaches don't want that dynamic between either the 2 quarterbacks, or maybe it's for the betterment of the entire team that they kind of know who the starting quarterback is going to be and can prepare, et cetera, et cetera. But I mean, I'm with you that I thought that, it kind of doomed the team a little bit by kind of shoving Kirk Cousins out of the picture and thrusting Michael Penix into that center stage role where I don't know. I think clearly just physically he was not really ready to lead a team to success when you look at how bad the accuracy issues were, on top of the fact that, once they had those 3 games of tape on him from last year, he was not getting those downfield shots like we saw him getting some more when he got that first taste of play.
It became pretty predictable. His best game of the year was against the Commanders, and we've suddenly found out how bad their defense was this year overall. Like one of the worst in the league. And I don't want to take anything away from him because he played really well that game, but we saw the other side of the coin the way he played against the Commanders. I mean, the Panthers rather, and some other games. Like he wasn't as polished, and maybe it was the system. Maybe that was part of it. But the reality is that the offense looked different, looked better, felt better, more connected, more flow with Kirk there, and the ability to be under center and run actual play action.
And that's a whole nother thing. When you talk about the system, it's like, was Zach Robinson prepared to lead a Michael Penix-led Atlanta Falcons in 2026? Probably not, or 2025, probably not,
Last year,
I think he was meant to work with Kirk.
Right. Yeah. It was a miscalculation of the I don't know if it was the coaching staff or the organization, but it was a miscalculation. It came back to kill him.
And that leads me to kind of the overarching point with all this, but when this kind of related to Raheem and Terry, which is that whatever vision kind of was in place, and when Raheem got the job in 2024, it was never quite clear exactly what it was, and it obviously never came to fruition with the lack of success that they had. And for that reason, I think that Falcons fans will look at this 2-year period as just kind of being this kind of, we're in the dark. We don't really know what's going on. There's not a lot of clarity. I didn't feel like either was a particularly good communicator, kind of for different reasons. Terry was very effusive and evaded, direct questions, and Raheem was kind of just like hit you over the top with all this language. It was hard to like kind of comprehend exactly what he was saying. And so I think, again, when we look towards the future and what Matt Ryan, could bring with him, I think has shown, being in the broadcast booth, everything he's done as a quarterback and all the media that he's done, is that he is a very clear communicator, and hopefully can kind of set the tone for the fan base going forward.
Yeah, again, I don't have any level of optimism yet. It's not negativity, it's skepticism. It's just I don't have any data points to operate off of that tell me that this is going in the right direction right now. I mean, it's funny for an organization. It's funny for a fan base that when I first got here over 11 years ago, repeatedly took a dump on Matt Ryan in favor of Michael Vick on a repeated basis and cut the guy down from now all of a sudden looks at him as the savior who is going to fix everything. I think that is quite hypocritical of any Falcons fans, but that's a whole different conversation. And yes, you can fire at me on Twitter if you want about that and put it in the comment section, but I'm right and you're wrong because I was here until Matt Ryan took them into a Super Bowl. The guy was routinely dumped on by this fan base on a routine basis.
Yeah.
So neither here nor there. We digress. Matt Ryan making all these football decisions. I don't know how it goes. I mean, look, John Lynch and John Elway, neither one of them has a Super Bowl as an executive. Am I correct in that? Okay, yeah.
I think Elway might. Did Elway win
Oh,
one
the
when
one-
when
he had the
when,
one with
when
Peyton.
Peyton was there? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
He got the one with Peyton, which happened to be the greatest defense, one of the top 5 greatest defenses of all time.
To go back to Lynch, I made a comment earlier on the show just to really quickly. Like, I mean, he got so lucky with Brock Purdy after the trade they had made for Nance. Or is that his name? Nance.
Lance. Trey Lance.
Trey Lance.
Jim Nance. I call him again.
I was thinking of Larry Nance. Yeah. But that trade was abysmal. That would go down as one of the worst trades of all time, if not for the lucking out with Mr. Irrelevant.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, you guys are saying it's worked there, but has it? It took a Hall of Fame quarterback and an all-time defense for John Elway to win a Super Bowl. Is that anywhere on the Falcons' radar? Okay. Other than that, yes, they've had success, but what is the measuring stick for success for this fan base? I guess it's just make the playoffs at this point.
At this point, it absolutely is. There's steps. There's steps. We got to take the first.
I don't know what when you say it's going to work here. Okay, define work.
Yeah.
If it's just make the playoffs, yes, then it'll be successful. But if you're actually hoping to raise a Vince Lombardi trophy here, Joe, I don't know how it's worked. I don't know that it has worked. And other than that, after the Peyton Manning year, from what I remember, the Broncos are pretty damn terrible for a long time.
Yeah, they were. Yeah,
they were bad for like 5 or 6 years after that. So, what's the definition of this works?
While we're talking about the Broncos, obviously they've had this really quick turnaround under Sean Payton, and that's been defensively led. And he's kind of provided enough offensively for them to kind of have a baseline to be successful. Could something like that be on the cards for the Falcons in your mind? Like if they nail a head coach hire?
The quarterback is like Bo Nix was handpicked by Sean Payton to run an offense specifically that he wants to do. One, Sean Payton, people are going to get mad when I said he's the best coach in the league still. Okay. Yes, he's better.
Jeff Ulbrich might agree too. Spent a lot of time coaching against him.
Yeah. He is the best schemer in the league. He's the best coach in the league. No one's better at exploiting your weaknesses, taking advantage of your deficiencies, and figuring out how to beat you within the game. The guy almost never makes a bad in-game coaching decision. So you got a Hall of Fame coach who hand-selected his quarterback. Joe, who the hell is starting week 1 next year? Like, Jameis Winston? Is that what we're doing?
Maybe. I hope so. As a media member, I mean, I
don't. No, I don't. I don't. I as a media member, I don't. I want some. I need something better than the backup quarterback being the most interesting story on your roster. Okay, and you know how I feel about backup quarterbacks. Short of kickers, they're just awful people. So, I don't know who's like all
That's
of these scenarios. When you look at all these scenarios where coaches come in and take over and win, the quarterback situation is settled, right? Even in KC, Alex Smith had won, 3 straight years before Mahomes came in and Andy Reid started winning. I told you about Denver. Like, even at that, Dave Canales took over with Bryce Young. Now, some bumps in the road. Look, Bryce looks good, right? I mean, Liam Cohen in Jacksonville finally got Trevor going where he's supposed to go. I mean, okay, Brian Daboll in New York. Daniel Jones was the guy he hitched his wagon to. How did that work out? What's Brian Daboll's employment status right now?
Yeah.
You have to, in order for the coach to matter, you have to have the quarterback situation settled. And I say all this to say it's not like you're bringing a coach in here who's going to draft a new quarterback. Because if you draft a quarterback again, oh, wait, that's right. You don't have a first-round pick. So anyway, you're not drafting a quarterback this year without mortgaging the farm to get one. And what are you asking them to do? You're forcing them to take the hand that is Michael Penix and make it work. And that's very difficult to do. It's not easy.
And I
So,
think I can't remember if it was Albert Breer or somebody. Somebody was asked about, like, how do you see Atlanta as a job for a head coach? And he's
and
like,
what
well,
this
it
is
basically depends on what that coach thinks of Michael Penix. if you
yes.
if you like Michael Penix, you probably think it's a great job, and if not, you probably think it's a terrible job for
Now,
that
in
exact reason.
fairness, you and I both know this. If Arthur Smith was still here, he was drafting Michael Penix too. He loved Michael Penix.
Yeah, they did. They
He
were on the scent.
absolutely they were all in on Penix. So it's not like I think Penix is bad, but at this point, this is about fit for Michael Penix. It's about scheme. It's about who is going to lead this young man to be able to play at a high level in this league. Clearly, Zach Robinson wasn't it. I don't know who takes this job. I don't know who wants this job. I mean, again, you and I went over this. Not a ton of hot coordinators out there. I know Clint Kubiak's getting everybody's attention. Okay. I mean, they have a really good defense. Falcons have a really good defense. They have a great running game. Falcons have a good running game. Like, I could see it. And I could see it from the standpoint of it's Kubiak, it's Shanahan, it's McVay. It's all similar concepts to what they were already running. Makes sense. I don't know that's that definitively going to work.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. No, I said that too in that that show I was referring to after that Panthers game before the last time I talked to you, which is like, yeah, I mean, I think I think Kubiak works with this team, like philosophically, what he likes to do offensively. But like, I feel like there's something missing from the organization
well,
and the team in general. That's like the coach is not just going to come in and fix it.
here's what typically happens, Joe, to offensive or defensive guys when they leave their one side of the ball and take over a head coaching role. What happens to the unit that they used to coach? Takes a dip. Why? Because being a head coach takes you away from focusing solely on the offense, makes you focus on all three facets of the game. Media, there's so much extra things that are involved. Some guys can't handle it. I don't know whether Clint can or cannot. I'm not saying he can't. I'm not saying he can't. I don't know the answer to that. But what I do know is that, if you hire him, there's going to be that whole thing. Did it affect Ben Johnson? Apparently not, but Chicago's the luckiest team in the world this year. They're getting bounced by the Packers anyway. But you just see how it all goes.
Yeah.
I mean, Aaron Glenn looked like a great coordinator. Not a very good head coach to this point. So I don't know what the quarterback situation looks like. And until I get any clarity on that, I can't really grade the hire until I figure out who the hell is starting week one.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And the one thing I wrestle with, and with regards to the Raheem firing, is the Ulbrich piece of it, because I thought that this defense made such huge strides
years on this team.
Yeah, and they showed the last 4 games that you don't actually even need. This team didn't need elite quarterback play in order to be a relatively successful team with what he'd built on defense.
It didn't. And, the idea that you were willing to throw away, all I heard for a dozen years since I've been here was about pass rush, pass rush, pass rush. Get to the quarterback. They finished second in the league in sacks, and nobody's happy still. Why? Like, you got what you wished for.
Yeah.
They finally got pass rushers.
That's the irony of it. It's like that Alanis Morissette song. You got 10,000 spoons. Like the Falcons got everything that they wanted basically coming into the season outside of that top tier quarterback play that they would have wanted out of their second year in Michael Penix, and somehow they were still left 8-9 out of the playoffs despite all these rookies popping off, having the best years of Falcons rookies and the sack numbers, et cetera, et cetera. I think that Ulbrich, ironically enough, based off of what happened last year with the whole Shedeur Sanders prank call situation, I do wonder if there's a little bit of built-in loyalty now with Ulbrich on Ulbrich's side, that he would be potentially willing to stay, but maybe it's not even his call. But we don't know if the new head coach would want to bring in somebody on the defensive side of the ball that they trust and they don't know Ulbrich, and so who are they going to side with? I don't know.
Tell you, Ulbrich's going to have opportunities, and for any team that is good that loses their coordinator, he might get snatched up by them. I
couldn't think more highly of the guy, honestly.
And you heard me say this last time, and I'll say it again just because I was wrong. I was wrong on Ulbrich. I was very, very skeptical of the hire when it happened. I did not think it was the right way to go. It felt very myopic and insular, which is a lot of what the Falcons' problems are. But Ulbrich's been great. He deserves all the flowers in the world, and I cross paths with him. I'll tell him I'm wrong again, but it was that I missed it. He was great.
First of all, I thought he dealt with the whole prank call thing with pure class. Just with the way that he handled it personally, and I can't imagine that was an easy situation to deal with.
About that.
Yeah, with with your own son kind of being involved in one of these things, and obviously having all of those dynamics going on top of the professional stuff that you got to deal with the Falcons. And I thought he was really good, but obviously during the season, obviously sets up the defense really well and puts the players in position to have success. And Mark, the other thing about him is that just like talking to him in press conferences, like he didn't talk like someone with something to hide, like he was kind of didn't want to give something away. I feel like sometimes these coaches become so obsessed with not giving anything away to media, they actually kind of compromise themselves in a way, and they come across as more stupid than maybe they actually are because they're trying to talk in a way that isn't, strategically disadvantageous to them. But I thought, Ulbrich was always so poignant with some of the things that he said about the way the game is changing, and I just appreciate that about him. And I feel bad for him that these teams now all want to hire offensive coaches, and understandably so. But people like him, I think, are probably our head coaching material. But I just don't know if he's going to get that opportunity again anytime soon.
Not in this hiring cycle, doesn't look like. But,
yeah.
I mean, again, all these teams, Joe. Okay, Giants, Titans, right? Browns. The Raiders are drafting a young quarterback, right? Those are the 4 openings we have right now. Am I missing anybody else? Right. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay. What do they all have? Young quarterbacks.
Yeah.
That need coaching. And what are the Falcons? Falcons is 5. Sorry. There it is.
Right. I was going to say, I thought there was 5. Oh, yeah, Falcons.
But even if Falcons have a young Michael, but like a defense coordinator is not, maybe he is, but you got to get the OC part right. And that's what they all have in common.
Yeah.
Usually teams with established quarterbacks, you know what they're not doing? Firing their coach because you're winning games, because your quarterback situation is settled. So that's the other part. Again, it's part of the logic in what would have been, I felt like, a prudent decision in the big picture to keep Raheem. Get through this year. And if Penix is back, guess what? Figure out if he's the guy for one more year. Because if he's not, you're hitting a reset button, getting a new quarterback again anyway. Mm-hmm. Look, here's the thing. Michael Penix either doesn't play next year, okay? It has to sit out or whatever, doesn't recover well, and whoever's in there is, i.e., good enough to get wins and put this team in the playoffs so you're not changing quarterback, right? That's option 1. Option 2 is Michael Penix comes back and plays and struggles because he's still a young learning quarterback. And guess what? Then you found out he's not it, at which 3 years of it, okay, well, are we picking up a 5th-year option on a guy? Probably not.
I was going to ask that. And they would have to decide on the 5th-year option, I believe, after next season.
Yep, after
in which he may only get a half a year coming off an injury.
And that's right. So the only way this goes back to the small needle that the Falcons continually try to thread when it comes to a measure of success. They don't give you a lot of paths to success. The only successful path is he comes back, plays 80% of the season, they win and go to the playoffs, and he is effective in doing so. That's the only measure of success that you have. Mm-hmm. Everything else falls short. So I don't know. Can I ask this question without getting yelled at? I don't know why people are so optimistic. When I objectively look at all the past and the probable outcomes of what goes on, I don't see a lot of boom, this one works, boom, this one works, boom, this one. I don't see that. I see a lot of maybe I'm negative. Everyone tells me I'm negative. I'm trying to be more positive in 2026, Joe. I'm trying to be a little bit more.
We're not off to a good start, Mark.
No, we're not, because I'm too much of a realist and I'm too objective, and I don't put my emotions into these things.
Yeah.
So, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. But those are the 3 options for Michael Penix next year. 2 of them don't work out in your favor. And if there's one that doesn't work out in your favor where, actually 2 of them really don't work. Because if he doesn't play at all next year, guess what? What are we doing with the 5th-year option? We have no idea if the kid can play. None. So you got to gamble on taking a 5th-year option. And if he plays poorly, what are you doing at quarterback in 2027?
Yeah.
It's just...
Especially if you're competing and you're, kind of in a similar, middle of the pack.
Another year of a playoff caliber roster with bad quarterback play.
Yeah. The other thing with Penix, as it relates to Kubiak is like we've talked about, very much an quarterback under center, wide zone, play action guy. And they clearly went away from that to the greatest extent possible when Michael Penix was the quarterback this year.
And
so for all the people who want
that's a
Kubiak so bad,
question to ask. I mean, he'll never tell us.
Yeah.
But it's if you can't be under center in the NFL, you're not going to succeed. Period. Because you can't run true play action. Oh, by the way, the zone read stuff from the pistol for play action works if your quarterback actually takes off with the damn ball.
Yeah.
It works for Lamar Jackson because
not only
take off and run.
Well, and
never ran.
Not only for the quarterback runs, but for the running back, so that the quarterback holds the edge defenders and doesn't allow them to crash down. That gives better lanes and better attack angles for the offensive lineman as well. So
I mean, it was a flawed system that worked much better for Kirk Cousins because that's who it was designed for.
It was clearly this second year he had that strength in the leg where he could push off and do a lot of those things that they needed him to do from under center.
Ifs and buts, you know what I'm saying? I mean, my aunt was my uncle.
That's right. That's right. Listen to Mike Tomlin.
Yeah, that's true.
By the way, how about that for Artie? Our boy Art Smith.
I texted him. He was pumped.
Was he? Yeah, I bet. He's.
I told him. I mean, it was just like I was like, Aaron looked awesome, man. He's still got a ton of zip on his flick of the wrist, and that thing comes out.
Yeah, I know.
On a laser, I'm like, phew. Man,
I think he has one of the highest velocity throws this year, either highest velocity or maybe longest distance in the air, something like that. But he's got one of the longest ones.
I mean, he's. I'm happy for him. He's pumped for this week. He's got a real tough test. I didn't get into it too much with him. I just think good luck. Hope it works out well. I mean, I think Art's settled.
Back. I think he's probably going to get head coaching interviews at least this cycle. I don't know if he actually gets a job, but
I would hope so. I think he should take him. Obviously, we'll see. But there's a world where he might end up back in Tennessee with Cam Ward. Imagine.
That would be wild. That would be crazy. That would be crazy. All right, we'll leave it there, though, Mark. Maybe we'll get back together, potentially maybe after the press conference this Thursday, like sometime next week or in a couple weeks, sometime later to kind of catch up. And
we should debrief it, but I have a lot to ask tomorrow.
No, it's going to be fun. I can't wait. It's going to be everybody's going to be watching, too, on the live stream and everything. I mean, I didn't realize in 2023, the Arthur Smith firing press conference, just like how kind of big time that was going to be. Like the whole Atlanta sports fan base was talking about it on social media and stuff, and I imagine it's going to be the same.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, I don't know. I don't know what the old man's going to say.
Yeah, we'll see on Thursday. So, Mark, thanks for joining, and everybody else, thank you for watching. If you're watching this, you can watch us on YouTube on 929 The Game's YouTube channel. If you want to get us on audio form only, just search Joe Patrick on football wherever you get your podcast, and we'll talk to you on the next episode.